Yeah, and speaking of destruction, it's interesting to me as we move through the text, and you get this captive imagery, like in verse 12 of the roaring lion, right? That children of Israel will be removed, no doubt, talking about then about 3 decades later, where the Assyrians take Israel and the 10 tribes captive. But I love this. I want to go back to this earthquake motif. Look at verse 14. That in that day, right, the day that they're going to be taken, I shall visit the transgressions of Israel upon him, and I will visit the altars of Bethel. Now remember, this is the time of Jeroboam II, mid-18th century, but Jeroboam I, right, remember, he's the one that sets up these false places of worship in Dan and Bethel, because he figures out, and from a political standpoint that we want to make, that if the birdies fly south to Jerusalem, he's going to lose that power. So he changes, he gets his own priesthood set up. He's changing the calendar dates. Hey, you don't need to go that far. We can have them right in our kingdom. So Bethel, which means house of God, is really prostituted in the sense that it becomes a place of false worship. So what's the Lord going to do? The way I'm reading this, and I may not have it right, is the horns of the altar shall be cut off. Remember, horns are symbolic of power. And there were the horns on the altar where you would grab onto, right, and wanting mercy. But I believe it's the earthquake that breaks off those horns. They're cut off, right? No mercy, right? You ripen in iniquity. We heard this 3 and 4 that Taylor talked about. And notice again the shaking. I will smite the winter house and the summer house, and the house of ivory, right? Come down out of your ivory towers shall perish, and the great houses shall have an end, saith the Lord.
Definitely sounds like earthquake imagery, that nothing will stand with that much shaking.
Nothing. And that's why I think you also get the teetering in chapter 2, verse 13. I am pressed unto you like a cart. Well, yeah, he's feeling responsibility. But I think you see this chapter after chapter where we see this, the voices getting louder, the roaring out of Jerusalem.
And so the only way to be not knocked over is to be grounded in God.
That's a great insight.
So if you're grounded in God, you won't be shaken loose.
So you can sense this crescendo, if you will, through the book of Amos. So he's walked them through the descriptions of the geography in 1 and 2, and the burden of a prophet. And then in verse 3, this idea that God has prepared all of this way, but they're still rejecting the prophets. So what do? Now we open up chapter 4 with, instead of you hearkening to the prophets, you are speaking louder to the people, things like verse 4, come to Bethel and transgress. At Gilgal, multiply transgression. Bring your sacrifices every morning and your tithes after 3 years. These are those idolatry centers in the northern kingdom, and they're calling for people to come and offer these sacrifices to these idols in opposition to the voice of the prophets. So what happens? Verse 6, I also have given you cleanness of teeth in all your cities and want of bread in all your places, yet have you not returned unto me, saith the Lord. Even when you're in a famine, you're still going to these false temples and not worshiping me.
Yeah, this is going back to Helaman 12, right? Death, famine, pestilence, you still won't remember me. I think it's also such a great thing as I think about Utah County. There's a lot of great things about Utah County, but when I read 2 Nephi 28, I'm thinking, that just this whole idea, I'm not going to, I remember President Lee say, don't paraphrase Harold B. Lee. I'm going to give it to you straight from the text. I want you to think about this as we go into chapter 4, verse 1, this idea that others will he pacify and lull them into carnal security, that they will say, all is well in Zion. Zion prospereth, all is well. And thus the devil cheateth their souls and leadeth them away carefully down to hell. So this is not in the spirit of preaching, but just in trying to teach. We all need this. I know I need reminders daily. And but I see this in chapter 4, verse 1. And by the way, we should always read the headings of these chapters, okay? These were written by Elder Bruce R. McConkie, who was a scriptorian, and it often will give us not only an overview, but really a nice doctrinal peek at something. But let me just begin with chapter 4, verse 1. Hear this word, ye kind of Bashan. So these are the wealthy women of Israel. They're being likened unto cows, okay? This is like where the Golan Heights. What are they doing? They're oppressing the poor. They don't care about the poor. They're drinking. If you look at this carefully, it's very interesting what's going on, where they're just not caring about anybody but themselves. And if you've ever been to the British Museum in London, I mean, there's reliefs, Assyrian reliefs, where you have people being taken out. Look at verse 2. What's going to happen? Because of your pride, you're going to be abased. And in fact, when you're taken out of the land by the Assyrians, they're going to put a hook through your nose and just line you up like a fishing line. So again, the Lord plays, he pleaseth them to come away from this, to return to me in verse 8. And we have, he's withholding the rain. Why is he doing it? He's trying to get them to return. It's interesting, this word return means shuv. It means literally to turn. The backsliding Israel, they need to turn, that we see like in Jeremiah, to return to the Lord.